is it going to have an impact in the near term or in the long term? That also we need to look into. Also, will this risk repeat, or is it one time that we can knock it off? So all these questions, if you ask whenever you suspect a risk that can happen, you can get some idea about that. At the same time, we can always have a cost analysis. Hold on a second. Okay, back. How often will this risk happen? Will it repeat again or not? All those things you need to ask and then get some answers. But that is not the end of it. We need to have some more quantifications required for risk analysis. Those are the things that we are going to see today in terms of the risk analysis. The next set of questions we need to ask is, what is the probability that risk can happen? For example, if you talk to the insurance companies, they give a real number. Out of so many vehicles that travel on this particular road at this particular time, the accident rate is this much. So the probability of meeting with an accident when you travel with a bike without the helmet is this much. So there is a number. This is based on traffic data. Same way, there can be a probability that can be analyzed. There are many companies, there are many third-party statistics companies that can provide some amount of market information. Can this happen or not? Based on the whole industry, they do a lot of analysis in the market, right from grassroots level. They can provide some numbers. So you need to have, again, there is no single method through which you can assign a probability. It may be wrong also. But somewhere you need to start with some number. So that the statistics will give you some information. Based on that, you need to assign, okay, this risk can happen 50-50 chances, or say 30-70 chances. We may have the risk or we may not have the risk. You need to assign a probability to every risk. Second thing you need to do is stakeholders. Stakeholders who are all responsible to identify the risk, to watch out the impact of the risk. At the same time, if some other parameter changes in that, right? For example, let us take the visa regulations to US or UK or Australia. Suddenly the rule change. From March 1st onwards, people whoever have given the appointment must support or must come with these supporting documents. If they have additional documents asked, do we have a reaction time? So someone, if a risk has been identified, like a weather forecast, you need to have a lot of weather offices through which you need to get the samples. So stakeholders are the one who identify potential risks, who can monitor parameters, right? If some company feels attrition is a risk, someone has to monitor that, monitoring this, controlling, okay, do I have enough control mechanism within the organization? So who is going to control? Finally, at least there should be one decision maker on every risk, okay? I have got 4 different inputs from 4 different people, but someone has to take the decision. Should I take path A to avoid the risk or path B to avoid the risk? Who is that decision maker? So for every risk, who is the identifier? Who is the monitor? Who is the controller? Who is the decision maker? You can also have other coordinators, like a risk parameter has changed. Someone has to notify the others, correct? Notification is also, it may be an email or it may be a call, right? So you have to just have some, these are all the essential stakeholders in every risk. Other than that, you can have even 15 stakeholders also. A stakeholder is nothing but some person or some persons who have some role in either identifying or monitoring or controlling or decision making about that risk. This again is a spade work. So categorization, near future, far future, internal, external, probability of the risk, stakeholders, and the severity of the risk, all these things first we need to have documented. It may be in an Excel sheet. Probably tomorrow I can show a risk management software. It can be in a centralized system, but somewhere it must be documented. Most important thing is every risk must be documented. If it is not documented, it may get buried. Nobody may be even knowing about that risk, right? It may be a potential issue. The moment someone raises it, it has to be documented, and most importantly, it must be communicated to quality team, because quality team has a direct line of reporting to the senior management. A project manager need not report to the CEO. There may be other hierarchies, whereas quality department is the one, and the sales department, right? They have a direct relationship with the top management. A risk must be definitely communicated to the quality team. There may be a quality control board which talks about processes, which talks about statistics or metrics. That team must know about that risk. So it must be documented, it must be communicated to the quality team. They will further take actions on that risk. Is this clear? This is the very basic thing that every risk has to be tackled. The very first step. If this is not done, if it is not documented, if it's not properly asked with suitable questions, or if it is not communicated to quality team, there itself the problem lies. Every organization must have this thing done. Is this clear? Can you please raise the hands? Cool. That's good. The next step, okay? The next step is we need to have options. The second thing is, okay, if this has happened, what are the options that I have? There are different ways to handle the risk, okay? Certain risks can be prevented. If the risk cannot be prevented, it has to be handled or managed. So either you prevent or tackle once it happens. So I need to have prevention plan and handling plan. So many companies, again there are some nomenclature. If a risk has happened, right, and you want to manage that, people call that as contingency plan. Contingency meaning once it has happened, what should we do? That is called a contingency plan. Prevention plan is also known as mitigation plan. That means, again, there are difference of opinions within the nomenclature itself. Some company can call exact opposite. Prevention is contingency and handling is mitigation. Again, this depends with the nomenclature of the company, but in broad sense, if it has occurred, that is a contingency plan. How to tackle it? It has not occurred, but how do I prevent it? That is called the mitigation plan. So having identified all the risks and other parameters, we need to have options, have a mitigation plan, have a contingency plan against every risk, put that also as a document. Now, let us take some classic examples. If you take SDLC in software, you take about the inception phase, which is where the contract and all get signed, then requirements phase, then design phase, then code and unit testing phase, then testing phase, implementation phase, right? Maintenance phase. So you have got a lot of phases within SDLC. Each phase can have its own risk. Okay. Let us take a typical product company. Okay. The inception phase is where you get the request for proposal and then you submit the quotation and you negotiate, you sign the contract. There itself a specific risk can happen. Okay. Again, a risk can be like anything in sales, anything that is going to affect your sales to say no, that is going to be a risk. It may be a small risk, it may be a bigger risk, right? So cost arbitrage. This is one of the major threat to most of the companies. Suppose you gave a proposal for say 40 lakhs and based on your analysis this product is worth 40 lakhs that we need to sell that, and then if someone is selling half the price, right? That's a definite risk that you are running it. So the risk comes in terms of your competition. Your negotiations can happen if the price is too close, then you can negotiate with something, but your offer is 40 lakhs, your competitor gives at 20 lakhs, then how are you going to handle that risk? So the salesperson must have thought through this. Okay, if I submit and if someone else submits half the price, what options I should do? Should I highlight my strengths, or should I highlight the weakness of my opponent, or should I give some other benefits carrot to that guy, right? So all these things we need to, the salesperson must identify. Otherwise, when they go for the meeting, in the open meeting, the client will ask these questions. You will not be prepared. Since you are not prepared, you will not be in a position to answer. You will buy time. By the time, competition will win. So cost arbitrage is a definite risk, right? Especially for established products. The threat always comes with new products, right? Again, it's the same thing. If you take cricket, there are established players, right? People who have worked or who have played for almost 15 years, okay, they have all those brand, everything, but suddenly a new player comes, hits, brand goes high for that. So for established products, new sleek products are a definite risk. For example, you can take even Skype, right? Initially only MSN Messenger and Yahoo Messenger were heavily used and Google Talk was there, but Skype came. Within a few years it became so big, other competitors couldn't even think of such a competition will come, right? Just one feature, voice talk, simple. The voice chat feature was made so great, the competition has come. So though the previous product was established for 10 years, a new product with even one kill feature, right? Even with one killer feature, right? If you take iPhone, cell phones were there, PDAs were there, people used to have the stylus to type something, send information. It will also talk. You can make calls. You can send emails. BlackBerry was there. One killer feature, touch screen, and you can use your fingers. You can feel the phone, right? Just one killer feature. Suddenly the sales went up. All the other competitions were killed. Nobody expected it would have been that much success, right? So established products, a new product with just one killer feature is a risk. So someone has to keep on monitoring. So in your organization, there must be a group that keeps on evaluating new product features. Okay. So it's a risk at the selling level. Okay. Again, there are multiple risks. Okay. One of the risks, again, you can always face is local presence. You are a great branded service company in India, but suddenly somebody asks a project to be done in Hungary, and you don't have an office. Though you are too big in India, a local guy who is sitting in Hungary can win the project against you. So the local presence. But the thing is, you can still win the contract provided you have got some answers, some plans to do that, right? So you can tie up, okay, if the project comes, you can always project. I will have a partner in Hungary, and then I will establish a small office for this project, start executing. So that thought process must be done before you meet the customer, and you should be prepared for that. Over the meeting, you cannot take decisions. So the sales may face multiple risks like this, right? And in sales, another issue also may come, right? Your technology, the technology that you proposed, your estimates are based on your technology. But clients also have, I have seen this many times, especially for a non-IT client, right? They might have initially thought that, okay, we will develop in .NET. Suddenly a consultant will come to that non-IT client. Hey, don't develop in .NET. You can minimize the cost by doing it in Java and MySQL. Client will immediately change their technology. Okay, anyway, the project has not started. Why can't you submit back another code in a different technology? All your sales effort has to be redone. It's another threat. If that happens, what can I do? Do I have the strength or lose that client? A few times we have lost contract like that because we projected a Java solution, but the client asked the PHP solution, right? Linux platform remained the same. Apache Tomcat web server remained the same. Database remained the same, but programming language has been changed from Java to PHP. We said we are not at this point of time to do PHP code. But now we are. But on that day when the client asked, we didn't have. So the technology, sudden twist in the technology by the client is another problem, right? It's a risk. It's typically, you cannot expect the client to change their mood after the project starts, but before the project starts, they can make any decisions and sudden twist can happen. That's a problem in the inception phase. If I go to requirements phase, right? Usually in requirements phase, right, there are always risks with the requirements. Changing frequency. Suppose you can meet certain customers, they will say, hey, requirement is only at this point of time 60% known. These requirements may have more requirements in the future, and these requirements may change. But if you submit a fixed bid or something like that, then you are into trouble. If requirements keep on changing, that's a definite risk. That is why in CMMI, there is something called requirements volatility index. If the requirements is volatile, that means it comes suddenly, client changes, but you would have done work. Unless you are cost-wise benefited because of that, it will be a problem. Changing the frequency too frequently, if it changes, you have a problem. Another thing is, another risk you will face, sudden reduction in scope. That can also happen. Suddenly the customer will say, hey, I asked you to create a product with 500 requirements. Now I need only 400. Re-estimate and then give them a proposal back. You cannot go back. You cannot go back because you have already taken the project. The client is asking now. Are you going to say no? The moment you say no, again you lose the project. If you say yes, again you lose money by reducing that much of effort. But the problem is, client has got the cost benefit by bargaining you with a bigger scope, and suddenly he reduces the scope. That's a definite risk. You are incurring. Client may not incur that, but you are incurring. Suppose you go and then ask, okay, 100 kgs of sugar is, what is the cost? You are asking the shopkeeper, okay, I am going to buy 100 kgs. So what is the cost benefit you are giving? Discount. Okay, now give me only 2 kgs. You cannot bargain. But some customers, after awarding the project, they may reduce the scope. That is again another problem. Especially in fixed bid, you accept it for a fixed amount of money, customers may add small requirements, but many such. It may take additional 1 hour, it may take additional 2 hours. If the project is for 3-4 months, if they keep on adding small requirements, end of the project, if you analyze, you would have done some 16 days of extra work. In fixed bid, you cannot say no also, and you cannot say, but many companies now, once the requirement is frozen, anything extra will be costed. But for relationship's sake, you cannot say no also. So unless you convince the customer, in fact, one person has asked a question, can we discuss the identified risks with the clients? Okay, you can definitely discuss those identified risks with the client, provided they are triggered by client. Certain internal risks, right? You cannot discuss with the client because they are your problems. Client may not even be interested in listening to your problems. If it is something to do with the client, you can obviously definitely, for example, this case, right? Customer is adding small requirements. It is causing a lot of problem to me. So you have to tell the customer and you have to communicate to the customer. But your problem of say power cut in Bangalore is 6 hours, that is going to affect my working timings, you cannot say that. There are many companies at some point of time in Bangalore, Chennai, in tier 2 cities, they faced power problems at many times, right? And that's a risk only to you, not to the customer. So you should have got enough alternate plans for that. So these, again, we are discussing only standard risks that are happening, but you cannot cumulatively say this will happen to everyone, or unilaterally we cannot say. But these are all the common risks that can happen. Design, okay? In design phase, many times there are something called design patterns, right? People may forget reusability factor, okay, or scalability factor, which is going to be performance oriented. If the design, usually the issue happens in design, people who have done maybe programming in COBOL and C, suddenly if they switch the platform when they come to .NET or C, Java, they may not be in a position to properly design that. They may introduce some problems in the design. But since they have the seniority, many people might not have questioned. So if the design is not reviewed properly, one of the design issue always happens when people switch from technology to technology, always issues happen or they are introduced into the design because they carry the previous experience to the new technology, which is always a bad thing unless they are really sharp. So this is one of the common risks that we face. Again, I am reminding once again, risk is also a problem. But suddenly you may not see the risk, or you cannot predict the risk. When you least expect it, it will happen. You will be caught totally unaware. It will be a surprise for you. So a surprise problem is a risk, always, right? So design, but most of the times, if the requirements are really good and you have a strong systems analyst, you can still avoid the design things. Coding, some of the risks that you do, right? Most of the times, what we feel is compatibility. Many times people forget, if customer would have said, I want to use MySQL this version, or Java, JDK this version. Suddenly they might have either used a higher version or a lower version. Initially you would have thought that, okay, we will use this technology now for coding, then at a later point of time we will change it, but the compatibility risk is too high. Or you would have thought, okay, we will first develop in this and deploy, then we will make the compatibility happen. Many times, many times, compatibility has become a major problem in coding. Also, another set of risk, right? The transformation of knowledge from specs to design to code, it is always a risk if you do not have proper set of people. Imagine there's an organization where a 15-year experienced project manager, under that person only all the freshers are put. So you see a generation gap of 15 years. You don't have anybody in between to translate that knowledge. So if there is a person with 5 years or 4 years experience in between, he can or she can translate the knowledge and then mentor the people much better and move closer. But if there is a huge gap in terms of experience level, the expectations are different, the transformation of knowledge is different. That is a clear and present risk everywhere. And many times people ignore it. This problem is well known, including our own organization. But unless, that is why you might have seen in bigger companies, project manager, project leader, module leader, senior software engineer, junior software engineer. In every project, you will not see just PM and then fresher. In bigger companies, the reason they are putting all those things because the knowledge transformation is clear. If you have a 15-year experienced person, then an 8-year experienced person, then a 4-year experienced person, 2 years fresher. If you have that kind of a mixture, it will be easy for the people. So the people at the higher level, they can transform the knowledge to the next level so quickly. Otherwise, to make a fresher understand what a 15-year experienced person wants, it will take more time and it causes frustration. So if that is not done, it becomes a risk. Then if you come to testing, one of the standard risks that the testers face is delays in development. But the project end date doesn't change. Assume that the target date is 31st March and I'm supposed to get the build by March 1st. If I don't get that build for the testing from the development team, I cannot extend that also. So there is always a risk in terms of delays in development. So testing team always faces this particular issue. It is inevitable, right? And miscommunication or gap in communication from the development team. Suppose they change something, if they do not inform the testing team, that becomes another risk, because these people test based on some specs, in between development team has changed, there's a gap, that becomes a risk. The problem is the risk doesn't surface on that day. 3 days after, client starts shouting. Then project manager understands, oh, this is due to our own problem internally. How many of you, if you are in testing field, have faced this issue? Improper communication. Can you please raise the hands if you have faced this issue? Okay, I could see a few hands coming up. Yeah, this is always happening. But tomorrow there is a major delivery to the client and the risk will happen today. Suddenly everybody sits in the team, they document everything, overnight spending, right? Why should we do that? Because a small risk has happened at an early stage and it was not corrected. That's a problem. Testing is an issue. So the four, again, as I said, one person has asked, what are the other risks? I have given only a set of sample risks over here. There are way too other issues, okay? Suppose in coding, okay, one of the key guys in coding of critical module is ill. People related risk. That guy doesn't show up on that day. What are you going to do? It's a problem. In fact, one other risk, environmental related risk, happened with respect to connectivity. BPO centers were badly affected. You might have heard the news. In Mediterranean Sea, one ship lowered the anchor and it affected the under the sea cable, and that cable was connecting Bombay pipeline for internet gateway, and it almost blacked out entire North India. Chennai escaped because we have an under the sea cable to Singapore. Almost for a week, internet was extremely slow and all the BPO units in the North India were badly affected because of that. Nobody expected that risk. It's an external risk. So this is a risk that is external, but what we talked here about in requirements, design, coding and testing with respect to IT industry, again a set of sample risks. There may be so many other risks. Unless we face that issue, we cannot find out what is the solution for that. Is this making sense so far? Can you please raise the hand? Okay. And one other thing, if you happen to read management books, right, by big time entrepreneurs, by big time business people, most of the time they will say, they will talk about the problems, what they faced and how they came out of that problem, right? Until the problem is faced, they would not have found the solution. So they faced, you might have seen many entrepreneurs who started in 1981 or say 80 or 83, they would have said getting a phone connection was a big problem, right? So the problem that they faced, we don't have that problem today. But since they have faced those kind of problems, by facing problem again and again and again and again, they become immune to that and then they are able to think ahead of the problem happening itself. So that is why they reach the top over a period of years, and after 15 years, they become the gurus of other people how to manage the risk. But again, the same solution what they used 15 years back, will it work today? We don't know. It's absolutely, it cannot be guaranteed. So management books, most of the time you would have seen risks and the solution that these people faced. Okay. Now, if you take implementation as a phase, most of the time we face issue with partners not doing proper install. Suppose I have an ERP, I give it to an implementation partner and the implementation partner does not implement it properly by installing, uploading master data, making sure the installation works. Obviously the client will be unhappy. But the problem is that the implementation guy is local at the client place. You are sitting in Chennai. Client will trust that guy more than you because he is local. He is establishing a relationship. So you need to have proper training to the partners, how to install, right at the first chart, how you can make sure that things work. And then another thing that will happen during this implementation is user training. Unless you do a proper user training, your product cannot be a success. You need to give elaborate documentation, demos, working demos, case studies, tutorials, so people will be comfortable. But standard problems that we always face, they would have given a clean sheet to the implementation guy. But after implementation, after 1 month, if you ask the customer, hey, did you try the purchase order addition transaction in your ERP? He will say, no, 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 I didn't try. Then how did you sign this document? Yeah, we trusted. Many times, because of trust or brand, they would have signed it. But at a later point of time, it will boil down to bad user training or a bad implementation. So unless we are equipped with good amount of documentation, this cannot be avoided so easily, right? Now, if you take typical BPOs industries, training is taking a huge amount of time and money. For them, the lead time to train, that itself is a risk, right? I have a capacity of say 200 seaters and I need to train these people, right? How I can train these people very quickly? Do you have enough samples to train? And each customer, call center customer, is different, and you cannot put the same guy to multiple customers. So user training itself is a big area. Do you have the right trainer? Do you have the right material, right? How are you going to evaluate the training? So all these things will come. In BPO, scale, that itself is a risk, because in BPO suddenly they give, I want to have another 100 seaters for you. Do you have enough space? Do you have enough bandwidth in internet? Do you have enough people ready tomorrow to start with that 100 people again? So the scale itself is a risk because it is highly human intensive operation. So do you have that scale? These are all standard risks that every BPO industry faces, right? Is this clear? One person has asked a doubt, is there any scientific method for risk assessment? Yes, there are. In fact, what we are going to see, probably not today, we have a tool, and at the same time, there is a way that we can do scientific evaluation by quantification, right? To answer your question briefly, we have asked a series of questions, but now we need to associate parameters for those questions and assign a weightage. For example, let us take a performance appraisal. In human resource performance appraisal, you have got multiple questions and you have got a mark assigned to each of them, and then weightage for each of them. Finally, you have to have a weighted average of all those marks. So out of 100%, what is your performance appraisal score? Same way, for every risk, you need to arrange with weightages for each parameters. Finally, you add up. If it crosses the threshold, the risk is bad. If it doesn't cross the threshold, the risk is okay to manage. So there is a scientific method, but ultimately that method gives you a number. That is called quantification, right? If you go to CMMI or CMM, the level 4 is always quantitatively managed. Quantitatively managed meaning any activity must be assigned with a number so that my comparison becomes easy, right? Get me metrics. So for everything we need to have metrics. That means number, statistics. How many people we interviewed, how many people got rejected in first level, how many people got selected in second level, right? How much time we spent on the interview last month. We should have a number. Okay, last month we spent 400 hours in interview. Previous month we spent 300 hours interview. With 300 hours interview of time, we selected 60 candidates. With 400 hours, we got only 40 candidates. Where are we going wrong? Right? So if we are able to get a number, senior management will always look for numbers to compare. That's why if you go to stock exchange, everything is number, right? The price, the volume, the turnover, profit, loss, everything is associated with the number. So you are betting based on a number. So if you want to do a proper risk analysis, scientific way is associate number. That is called quantitatively managing. We will talk about that tomorrow. Any questions for the day? Tomorrow what we are going to see is, number one, a simple tool that can track the risk history. Number two, some of the standard mitigation and prevent contingency plans. Okay, if this happens, what should I do? What should be done? Right. Third, some of the weightages, right? Basically, how to quantify this, right? This person has asked another question. If we assign weightage to each risk and parameters, will it change from organization to organization? Yes, of course. So the numbers will definitely change from company to company, because 40 people leaving in a 100-member company is not same as a 40 member leaving in a 2000-member company, right? Again, percentage wise it may be the same in some cases, but absolute numbers may differ, parameters, weightages will differ, and the financial power to overcome, that is also going to be different, right? So numbers will definitely change from company to company. There is no one single method. Okay. Any other questions? So one other person has asked, can you explain SWOT briefly? See, this SWOT method is normally not used. That is a generic analysis. Your strength, weakness, other things are generic analysis. Okay. When it comes to specific, we are here very focusedly talking about risk analysis. Okay. The SWOT analysis can be done even for your organization in a normal time, right? Your own strengths, your own weakness, everything can be analyzed. And opportunities, again, it varies and you can change your directions. But here, given the scope of a project, given the scope of a customer, what is the risk that you can face in this project? Again, one more thing is, there are project level risk, there are organization level risk. Okay. So project level risk and organization level risk, it can be, if multiple projects face the same risk, then it becomes an organizational level risk. So companies do have to have that kind of a mechanism, whether this symptom is happening in multiple places. We'll talk about that tomorrow, because mitigation, contingency, options, assigning numbers. Okay. Just to quickly answer before we proceed to tomorrow's session. For example, if I have parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3, parameter 4, right? I need to have weightage 1, weightage 2, weightage 3, then weightage 4 for each of these parameters. Suppose I give a score, for example, P1, parameter 1 is, it's a catastrophic risk. And I'm saying a number, say 5, say, let us say score number 1. For parameter 2, I assign a score number 2. I have a score number 3. Then I have a score number 4. Finally, my risk indicator, right? Risk coefficient equal to W1 into S1 plus W2 star S2 plus W3 star S3 plus dot 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 plus WI star SI. So if I have this number throughout my organization, and I can compare it much easier, right? But again, how to assign these numbers, who will give me this weightage? It has to be done over a period of time, right? It cannot be done. I cannot apply a number that is used by Microsoft to my organization. I have to get somewhere a benchmark. There are some benchmark industry companies which are giving some yearly numbers. They do consulting after analyzing your company position. But after that, you have to evolve with your own metrics and baselines, right? But you cannot apply some other company's number to yours, right? Any other questions for the day? Okay, one other question has come in terms of, will these numbers change? Yes. Today, the risk may have 67% or say something like that, or I would say the risk coefficient as on 15th March 2010 is that, let me say it is standing at 3.8, just an arbitrary number. Maybe the risk coefficient as on 16th March 2010 may stand at 2.5, because as I said, we will talk about that monitoring, risk monitoring. Someone might have seen, okay, yesterday we were having this dispute between an opinion on the government order. Today the government order has clarified, okay, sales tax is not applicable for this kind of a thing, so our profitability is much more, so this risk is really less now. Anything, suppose in that organization anything about 3.5 is a red, then they can say, oh, now because of this ruling from the government, the risk factor has come down to 2.5. Within a day it can change, right? Or it can be stagnant for a year also. So the risk monitoring is also there, and on that day for that organization, what is the score for that risk? That is what is risk monitoring. We will talk about that in the next session. It's a good question though. Yes, the risk scores do change. Any other questions for the day? Okay, good. I think maybe people are in the Yugadi mood. I wish happy Yugadi to all the people. So we will stop the session today here. We will continue tomorrow. In tomorrow's session, we will talk about a risk management tool, how to scientifically put a number for each risk to arrive at risk coefficient, some of the standard mitigations and contingency plans that organizations normally do adopt. Thanks a lot. Good night.